I'm Erica Lukes, host of UFO Classified. For me, life isn't simply black and white. Life is full of many unknowns. It is my goal to travel the world and to work with the world's leading experts in the hopes of making groundbreaking discoveries. Join me on UFO Classified Friday nights at 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, only on KCOR.
UFO Classified. UFO Classified. No more plausible deniability. Fact, fiction, or the truth. You decide. And now, the new voice of the high desert, the hostess of UFO Classified, Erica Lukes.
Good evening, this is Erica Lukes. I'm here tonight, Friday night. It's a beautiful evening in Salt Lake. I hope all of you are safe and healthy. Last week's show was very interesting and definitely raised some questions in Chris Marx's mind and a few other people's minds, and we will be addressing those a little bit later in the program. But first, I wanted to just tell you a little bit about Junior Hicks, Joseph Junior Hicks. And if most of you don't know who he is, I would definitely look into him, because for me, he had a very significant part in my life. We had a very meaningful, very heartfelt conversation. And what he has done for preserving the history of the subject in the Uintah Basin has been legendary. It has been something that people have tried to get a handle on for decades, and unfortunately, he passed away at the age of 92 on Sunday. So the world lost a great hero, in my opinion, and he will always be a legend. I don't know if there is one man on the planet who has done as much to catalog sightings in the Uintah Basin, and then also to create a one-man support system for people that were having encounters from the 60s on. He was a very gentle and kind soul, and in my second to last meeting with him, there was a moment, and I was recording the interview, but there was a moment we were sitting by his pond, and I began to tell him how grateful I was as a researcher who's trying to get to the bottoms of things, especially in my home state. And I really felt this strong, I'm going to try not to cry. Okay, it's not going to work, connection with him. And at that moment in time, when we looked at each other and he understood my gratitude, he started to cry as well. And it was one of those moments that you have that is will always be with you. And I hope that I can do my best to continue on his work and to do the people of Utah and the people in the field of ufology the best job I can do. So that was really meaningful for me, and I'm sorry. Anyway, I'm going to try to contain myself. But I want to just tell you a little bit about Joseph. So he was obviously considered as a very legendary man, and he was born in Cedar View, Utah. He's a Utah native, and he is naturally curious and fueled by a unique blend of talents and interests and abilities that have made the world a better place. This is from his obituary, and that is absolutely true. Junior attended school at Ioka and Roosevelt Elementary and graduated from Roosevelt High School, which is right where the Skinwalker Ranch is, the Utah UFO Ranch. Upon graduating from high school, Junior immediately enlisted in the U.S. Navy at the end of World War II and was stationed at naval bases in San Diego and Treasure Island, California. He was a crew member on the USS Protector, and in 1947 he enrolled in BYU and graduated with a bachelor's degree in secondary education with a minor in physics and science. He was a brilliant man. He taught for 33 years at Altera High School and West Junior High in Uintah County, and he created many lasting relationships with students and faculty. He was well known for the most exceptional science classroom that contained unique displays of electrical gadgets, minerals, fossils, biological specimens, and many hands-on learning marvels. And we were lucky to go to his house and see some of the wonderful creations that he made. During the time he was teaching school, he met Janelle Smith and wanted to impress her. And for the first date, Junior picked Janelle up in his 47 red Willys Jeep, drove her to the Roosevelt Airport, and took her on a thrilling flight in his private plane. Other dates followed, and they were eventually married in the Salt Lake Temple in 1955. In addition to teaching, Junior developed a thriving business as an electrical contractor, and he was well known for driving his iconic red and white utility truck. I'm not going to cry again. KBBM. Junior provided electrical contracting services for basin businesses and residents for more than 65 years. And although he never advertised, he never lacked for business. For many years, Junior enjoyed working with his friend and partner, Moreland Buchanan. He earned his master electrician license at the early age and renewed his license regularly with the state of Utah until he retired at the age of 90. He had a long career. He found an interest in mineral processing, prospecting, and aviation. He got his pilot's license and paid for his first private airplane by selling uranium claims he established in southern Utah. He also had a great deal of love for all the mysteries, the historic Spanish mines, researching and exploring. He loved petroglyphs, Native American history, and local lore, and he had a passion for UFOs and unexplained phenomena. He documented at least 400 sightings from residents in the Uintah Basin, and was the principal contributor and source for the book, The Utah UFO Display by Dr. Frank Salisbury. He gave numerous interviews and presentations on the subject. He was a faithful member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and willingly shared his wonderful talents in many ways. He devoted his time to numerous church responsibilities, such as regional welfare coordinator, bishopric member, high priest quorum leader, state clerk, temple work, Cub Scout leader, and primary teacher. He was a faithful home teacher and magnified his callings to the best of his ability. That is from his obituary. And it is true, you couldn't meet him and not fall in love with him. And I will never forget the last time I saw him, and we drove away, and he was standing there next to his truck, waving. He was such a kind man, and I just want to, anyway, I'm sorry I'm so emotional, but I just want to say thank you, Junior, for everything you've contributed. You've made a difference in my life in more ways than you'll ever know, and he has done a great service for the world. And so anyway, I'm going to have, while I stop crying for a second, I'm going to have Tina play a clip from an interview that Tom Tulane with the Sign Oral History Project did. He did an interview with Junior a few years back. And it's just, this is a little segment about the history of the region, which is so fascinating, and he loved that. And then also gives you a little insight as to why he got into the UFO sightings to begin with. And I think it is wonderful to hear this from his voice, and God rest him. So Tina, please play clip 2. Thank you.
It's just, we talked a bit already, but I'm just curious, I mean, are you from this area originally?
Yeah, I was born and raised here. Born and raised in this area, Uintah Basin.
Yeah.
Been here about 85 years.
What year were you born?
1927.
27? You think, I hope I look as good as you. In what, 30 years? 80?
85, I'll be 85.
Yeah,
the next month or two.
So, I mean, you grew up in, what did your dad do? I mean, was he a farmer? Was he?
Well, actually, my dad was killed before I was born.
Oh, yeah.
And it was the farming communities where we're from.
And but your dad wasn't a farmer?
No, no. He worked in the mines and in the just as a construction person.
Yeah. So you were raised by your mom, or
Yeah, pretty much.
do you have brothers, sisters?
Yeah,
A couple of them, or?
6.
Oh, big family. Oh, okay. Are your brothers and sisters still around?
No,
No.
not here.
They're all gone, or they're...
They're in different locations.
Yeah, okay. You're the only one that stayed at home, huh? And then, I mean, tell me a little bit about this area. I mean, just for context. I mean, it's an interesting area. It's really kind of an isolated part of the country.
It's pretty isolated. Back in the 1861, President Lincoln designated this particular area as a reservation for Ute tribal people. And they brought in not only the Ute people from Provo area, who was their ancestral homes, but since the pioneers came into that area, they decided to move the Ute people into this area. This is the ancestral hunting ground for the Ute people.
How far did they range?
They ranged all the way from Provo area through the Uintah Basin over to Colorado, and then south into the Book Cliff area.
Oh, yeah.
And north to the top of the Uintas. The reservation was established. That was the boundaries of that particular spot, except the eastern boundary was this side of Vernal.
So it was a large reservation.
Yeah, quite a large reservation. But they brought other groups in here. We had the Uncompahgrees and the White River Indians who lived in Colorado. Brought them over here also to live.
Oh, yeah.
And of course, many of the Ute and the Uncompahgrees and the White Rivers didn't get along too well, and so they had to establish the fort at Fort Duchesne, and brought the black soldiers to come in and to help maintain order and take care of any problems that might arise between the whites and the Indians. And they opened this area, Uintah Basin, part of it, for settlement of white people in 1905.
Oh, yeah.
And then a lot of people emigrated out here and settled in the area and just became farmers and ranchers.
Yeah. And so that reservation was established in what year?
1861.
61. Oh.
President Lincoln.
Oh, wow. Yeah, so there is quite a history here.
Yeah.
You were talking, I mean, just because I don't want to miss this, but you had mentioned earlier that you're interested in the history of the Indian.
Yes, I had friends who were Indian people, and 65% of the students I taught school for 36 years here in this area.
Yeah.
Retired in 1987, and we had about 65% of the students I had taught were Native Americans, Ute people.
Oh, yeah. Did you teach here at
No, it's just about 5 miles east of here.
high school or?
The junior high school.
Junior.
7th, 8th, and 9th grade, primarily. I taught science.
So you had a lot of contact with the
Yes.
Indian culture.
In I might give you the background of my interest in UFOs. Back in 1951 was the year I started teaching. And I had a friend who graduated from college at the same time I did, who was employed in Duchesne City as a elementary school teacher. And when I graduated from college, I graduated with a multiple degree in geology, mathematics, and physics, with a teaching degree in secondary and elementary school with an emphasis in mineralogy.
So you at the University of Utah or?
BYU.
BYU, okay.
And anyway, he taught at the elementary school in Duchesne, and I taught at the junior high school here at West Junior High, or beginning at Altura. And then I noticed in the Desert News, on the front page, there was an article on a UFO sighting at Duchesne. And it involved my friend who was teaching school there, and apparently this sighting began during the school hours when the students were let out of elementary school for recess, and he was out on the school ground supervising the students. when directly over the top of them at about 500 foot altitude, there was this large cigar-shaped craft that moved over the school. And it slowly moved over the school, went from west to east. And the students all got a good look at it. He did, and it wasn't making any sound.
When you say a good look at it, I mean, at what?
At that 500 foot altitude, that would be not very high, and it was a huge craft. It was about 300 or 400 feet in diameter, or in length.
Length? Really? In 1951?
1951. A silver-looking craft. They described it and the students went inside the building and drew what they said they saw and made statements from these students. And that appeared in the Desert News. And I read that, and I knew the teacher, so I contacted him, and that sparked my interest.
You know, it's so good to hear his voice, and thanks to Tom Tulane, we will always have that record, which is so important. And that is one of the reasons I absolutely love doing my radio show, because I get people on here like Junior who have invested their life into studying this. It becomes their passion. And a lot of times when people dedicate themselves to doing such work, it can really ostracize you, not only from your community, especially in a small community like Roosevelt, but it can ostracize you from people of your faith. It can ostracize you from your loved ones, because you're spending so much time on a fringe topic, and it is very complex and far-reaching. But he had a very strong and loving and tender relationship with his wife. He had the respect of his community because of everything that he had accomplished, and how just what a kind spirit he was. And so he built this wonderful support system there where people felt comfortable talking about things that most of us don't feel comfortable talking about sometimes. And that is a real rare gift for one man to accomplish so much. So, I just want to say, that I had, in my last meeting with him, I was with my husband, Chris Marx, and it was really just wonderful moments in time. And I remember sitting there and his plaid shirt, and he was quite thin, but just a very striking man, and him recounting some of the stories and some of the interactions that he had with people in the intelligence community, with Robert Bigelow, and some of the questions that he had. And also, because he was a man of strong faith in the LDS Church, he also had, like Dr. Frank Salisbury, who wrote the Utah UFO Display, a very important book, they had conflicts, there are religious conflicts in belief systems. And so it's a very interesting process for a person to go through. And I know from my personal experience where I was from day one getting into this in my personal life, and then in a public sense, everything has changed so much. And sometimes it's hard to get your footing. And I know that that these Frank Salisbury and Junior Hicks went through times like this, and we all do. I had the pleasure I've spent considerable amount of time going through the Dr. Frank Salisbury's archives, and I've had my hands on the first rough draft of this book with all of his handwritten notes of the sightings that Junior relayed to him, and some of the possibilities that Dr. Frank Salisbury wanted to address in this book about different belief systems, about how to look at something and determine whether it was a hoax, about how to understand different types of people and how they're seeing and experiencing things. And it was really a great book. They met each other. If you don't know this story, it's really wonderful. They met each other. Dr. Frank Salisbury was giving a lecture at the Teachers Association, and Junior Hicks was in the audience and went up to Dr. Salisbury after and told him about some of the strange experiences that he had been reporting or researching in the Uintah Basin. And Dr. Salisbury obtained $200 in funding, and he made a trip out there and documented all of these things and kept in touch with Junior Hicks over the years. And for me, and I say this a lot, I really believe this, not only because this has a special meaning for me, but the Utah UFO Display is really an important book for all of you to get. It's amazing. And I want to just read this without crying. I don't think that's going to happen. I'm glad that we've got a break coming up. So Junior inscribed this book to me. The Utah UFO Display was so proud of it. Erica, thanks for extensive work and interest. And so little things like that will always mean the world to me. And when I'm having times of just feeling like I'm going to throw in the gloves and walk away because I'm so disheartened with things, I look at that book and I look at what he wrote to me, and those few words inspire me, and they give me hope, and they make me want to continue doing what I'm doing, even though it's not an easy road and I don't like the things I'm uncovering. I want to believe it's all love and light and rainbows and unicorns. But the one great thing that I really, and one of the great things I admired about Junior, is he always just had such a kind heart and willingness to share. And he was smart, and he understood the people that would come around him at times to try to manipulate belief systems like we all have when we get close to things in the subject. He knew that was happening. And at the end of the day, when you pass away at the age of 92, and you have contributed not only to your community because of the kindness in your heart, but you have also left a legacy like this, you know that you have left the world a better place. And I mean that because this world will always be a better place because of the imprint, the dramatic imprint that Dr. Frank Salisbury had. And Dr. Frank Salisbury and Junior Hicks, they both just stunning, wonderful people. I am so blessed that I've had the opportunity to get to know them. And I just want to say that for all of you whom I feel like I know, even though I've never met most of you in person, I understand that we're all in this together, and I feel sometimes very discouraged, as you've kind of seen on Facebook lately, because of some of the things that I've uncovered. But I make a promise to you that I will always do my best, like Junior Hicks, to rally a community together, to give a supportive voice for people, and to do my best to get you the truth. Because at the end of the day, we have a lot to weed through. We are in this together. And I want to just thank, from the bottom of my heart, Junior Hicks. Rest in peace.
Stand by. This is UFO Classified with Erica Lukes. The phone lines are open now at 702-425-9230. That's 702-425-9230. Worldwide callers use Skype name KCOR Radio. More UFO Classified with Erica Lukes on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. After this.
Do you love new music? Yeah! Then tune in to the Americana Music Radio Show, Sundays at 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern, from the West Coast to the East Coast, and everywhere in between. Your host, Charles Christian, will introduce you to the artists both old and new. The Americana Music Radio Show, where we showcase new local talent, as well as international artists, as well as showing you where Americana music is happening and who's making it happen, both here in the U.S. and around the world. The Americana Music Radio Show, hosted by your musical aficionado, Charles Christian, every Sunday at 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern, on the KCOR Digital Radio Network.
To the KCOR Digital Radio Network.
I love the way it sounds.
Love the music. All I listen to.
The future of radio is here and now. One of the planet's most powerful antioxidant products is here for you to enjoy. Chaga mushroom tea. This tea has been used as a potent natural health solution for thousands of years. In fact, the Chinese call it king of the herbs. The health value alone is worth a look, as Chaga mushroom tea packs a punch with pure vitality and smooth energy. It's 100% wild crafted, safe, and effective. Get it now at arcticchaga.com. That's ARCTICCHAGA.com, or call 916-969-2678. That's 916-969-2678. Chaga Mushroom Tea. Chaga Mushroom Tea. Order your supply today.
Now, broadcasting in digital HD radio.
Friday night, 9 p.m. Pacific. Jump onto the Celestial Highway and travel at the speed of light. Into hyperspace. Hyperspace. Hosted by Solaris Blue Raven. She navigates you through the cosmic tides of mysticism into the world of covert technology, UFOs, mystical sciences, and the world of unforeseen forces.
You get to really sort of enjoy a bizarre ride.
Listen live, Friday night, 9 p.m. Pacific, for Hyperspace, the one show that blows the whistle off our government black ops projects. Hyperspace, hosted by Solaris Blue Raven. Exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network.
Want to take a ride?
Are you ready to go? It's showtime!
Here we go, world.
You're listening to the KCOR Digital Radio Network.
Broadcasting from the heart of Las Vegas, Nevada.
Their base is so large it has to draw most of its power from the nearby nuclear fusion plant.
The future of radio is here and now.
You're listening to
UFO Classified with Erica Lukes, where the truth isn't hidden beneath the black lines of a Sharpie.
That's the craziest thing I've ever heard.
To be on with Erica, call 702-425-9230. That's 702-425-9230. Worldwide callers use Skype name KCOR Radio.
Radio contact.
Share your thoughts on the show on Twitter by using hashtag KCOR. Or head over to the live chats at KCORradio.com.
The audience goes nuts.
And now, your host of UFO Classified.
Are you ready?
Erica Lukes.
Well, I did go dry off my tears and try to compose myself, but thank you for listening to my emotional tribute to Junior. He will always be in my heart, and so what a good man. Most of you who listen to my show are so kind and wonderful, and you've listened over the years. I've been on the air for years now. And each week I spend a considerable amount, probably more than a full-time job, researching this, talking to people, interviewing people in my community and all over the world. And it has been such an interesting, trippy experience for me. As I mentioned in the first segment, and I mentioned this on quite a few of my shows, when I first, picked up my first UFO book, to the time I read Communion, to the time I went on these adventures and tried to investigate and learn, my whole attitude has shifted so much. And I wanted to stress to you that I know that there is something very real taking place. I do not know what it is. I will not say that this is extraterrestrial, because I don't know, you don't know, none of us know. I think, as I've said, my views have changed. I think that there is something that is very empowering, and I think, unfortunately, because of the intelligence community, because of mentally ill people, because of people who are trying to capitalize on this topic, that it is really hard to get to the bottom of that because of all of this nonsense. Unfortunately, a lot of bad things can happen. And as I've tried to stress, especially in the past year, you have to make sure that you are looking at everybody's backgrounds. I cannot stress that enough. So if somebody's coming forward and saying, hey, I'm the next UFO messiah. I'm going to give you A, B, C, and D. And yes, disclosure is going to happen and yada, yada, yada. We've heard these promises before. And this is one of those times where, you question the people, you do digging into their background, you look at their financial connections, you look at their political connections, you see what gains they might have if they were to steer this narrative, and how they're making money in the background with different things. And yes, it's great to make money. It's great to be smart in business, but sometimes there is much more than what meets the eye. And I'm trying to stress that because it's important. I know for me and my discovery process of Skinwalker Ranch, that this has been a very rocky journey for me, because when I first, like I read Hunt for the Skinwalker. I came into this and I was, yes, it's Utah. It's my backyard, man. I'm going to get out there and promote it, and I'm going to fall down this rabbit hole and buy everything that's being fed to me because it's cool. I get it. I've been there. I've done it. I understand that we're all going to make mistakes. We're all not going to have enough education in things. But as I first really began to kind of get into this, and I met Chris Marx, and I married Chris Marx. Our first interview together was it was completely different than what it is today. Chris went on my first interview and said, you know what? Yes, I worked for Bigelow. He worked for Bigelow Aerospace for almost 10 years. Chris Marx was at the 60 Minutes interview with Robert Bigelow. So Chris had an inside scoop, and he was very supportive of Bigelow as a person and of Dr. Colm Kelleher. But as things came to light, as the solicitation sheet for OSAP made its way to the light of today, where we could see this, serious questions popped up. Wait a minute, this had really nothing to do with UFOs. Even though the people, that are promoting that are going to tell you that, because of course they've got to run defense on this, the advanced aerospace weapons testing. Of course they're going to do that. They've done it for decades. Just now we've got a whole new group of people. But like I said, I went through this process, and Chris and I, every night we're talking about things. We're going over details. I am on the phone talking to his colleagues. I am on the phone talking to people that live in the area. I am visiting the area. I have made for years, even before I made this discovery process and started questioning the ranch narrative, I have conducted interviews in person with people who have experienced things in the area. And now as these things start coming to light, and I have questions about the narrative that has been put forward, things have changed. And like I said, and I want to I've got some new people that are listening to the show. And again, I understand that you're in this space where we read the book, we're hooked, we're buying the hype and the PR, but we're not asking the critical questions. And for me, when I see the UFO community not take what I'm telling them seriously about Chris and his colleagues potentially being experimented, used as guinea pigs, let me just say it irritates me, because I know what he's been through. I know the relationships he had. My husband, Chris Marx, and I'm just going to tell you this, is a person that has proudly served his country and put his life on the line for you and I, for our freedom. And he is still doing that today. And for people to question start to question the moral fortitude or the fabric of which somebody who is willing to put their life on the line for our freedom when they're sitting in an ivory tower, I really have a problem with that. That is not okay with me. And so I just want to put that forward. We have questions, and I will not rest until I get more answers. And it is starting to unravel, and that's great. At the end of the day, if there is something real and genuine, show me the data. If there is something that you can really tell me to disprove the fact that non-lethal weapons could have been deployed at the ranch or in the surrounding areas, then show me that proof. Last week, Brandon Fugal, the ranch steward of the ranch, came on my show. I appreciate him taking the time out to do that. I had a million questions, as did some of you, and hopefully he will come back. But my questions, are very simple. What happened? What will the quality of life be for those that were exposed to things on the ranch? The dangerous radiation levels that on one moment we're saying on the TV show they're dangerous, and another moment we're showing one of the people on the team getting severely injured, and then in another moment we're showing another person in the team who has radiation burns. So tell me that I am not justified in wanting answers for this. Tell Chris Marx, who has proudly served his country, that he does not deserve answers for what he was potentially exposed to and the quality of his life. Tell me about that. And so anyway, these are my things, and I hope you understand that, and I hope you get the fact, and I know if you're listening to my show, you understand how I feel, and you are smart enough to know when you're being talked down to. You are smart enough to understand we need to ask more questions. And so I want to address, and I'm hoping I can again get Mr. Fugal on here to answer these questions, but he made a comment about the non-lethal weapons testing, and he said that he saw no evidence of that on the ranch. And so, of course, I had a couple people on my YouTube channel, okay, obviously that wasn't right. And this is what I have to say to that. First of all, if you are testing things, you don't necessarily roll it out on a Tonka truck, okay? It isn't something where you bring out some little piece of equipment and tie strings to it, put it in a coffee can. This is very advanced, probably satellite-based technology. It wouldn't be visible to the people that are having the weapons tested on, and we know through documents that they test on their own citizens, okay? So let's just get that straight. So there is absolutely no proof to me that would say this isn't perhaps a non-lethal weapons test scenario. If it is UAP and all of these people are getting severely injured, and Dr. Kit Green has gone on the record saying that patients that are exposed to this UAP have a shortened lifespan, then shouldn't I ask questions? And you are going to tell me you're going to diminish my quest for knowledge. That ain't going to happen. So I want to now just bring Chris Marx on. Conveniently, he's here. Because as he listened to that interview, I know for him, this is personal. And for him to have lived on that ranch and to have studied every square inch of it and to know it better than probably anybody that is on the ranch today, I can tell you that there are some things that he would like to and deserves to address about this. And so, Chris, what, as you listened to that interview, what were some of the thoughts that crossed your mind? When we went up to him, we visited Junior, and I know that you wanted to talk about that.
Just to close this out, I was so impressed with his just being himself, and it was a time where he was serious and he was interested in what was really happening and documented that. It was a different time than the Hollywood productions that we see about the same theme essentially today. It was a time before we started calling people snipes, and that's leading me into your question. Today is not the day that, I'm going to go in depth on this. However, I will touch on it. But when I listened to this interview last week, it inspired me that Sunday I will tape a show independent from this one, and will address those issues in depth on a YouTube channel, because I'm so over it. I'm over the politics. I'm over the money making. I'm over everything that has developed with BAASS 2.0. So during the interview, and Erica, we had researched the Mick West show prior.
Right.
We had researched other interviews that Fugal was on. And one thing we noticed was it didn't really matter what was asked. The answers were the same, well-rehearsed, polished, standardized answers. It didn't matter who asked them. It didn't matter if there were variations within the questions. So we agreed, talked about this before you went on air with him, that you would take a different approach and just let him talk.
Right, and I mean, I am very, and the thing that, I want him, I always want people to feel comfortable. And I wanted to say that I appreciated him taking the time out. I know that he definitely knew that he would be asked questions by me, and he is a very adept and brilliant businessman who has had a wonderful career in Utah. And so, it was an interesting interview, and I definitely learned some things about the way, I would approach things. And also, I feel that at the end of the day, it's always important to let people talk.
I agree with that. What I find interesting is I talked to my buddy Chris Bartell recently, and he told me, because he was actually asked to come up there and on this show, and they asked him how it felt to be a guinea pig, one of the crew. And so anyways, Chris was very surprised by that. We talked about it. Well, we didn't know what that meant at the time. We know more now. But we had a lot of different comments and overwhelming response to this show. And it was just all across, from saying that Erica asked questions that were taken away from the scientific part, and there's some true believers, and no matter what you tell a true believer, he will always be a true believer. When I look back, it's been a year now. When I first came on, I stated on the first show that I believed Robert Bigelow to be a visionary, to be brilliant. I believed Kelleher to be one of the most brilliant scientists in the United States. I still listen to people like Eric Davis, and it has been a year of a whirlwind.
You ain't kidding.
We have received so many from the ALSAP solicitation sheet to so much more evidence that shows a picture that is so entirely different from the Hunt for the Skinwalker Walt Disney production. It shows a totally different light to what took place. One thing that really upset me was, and I'm gonna address this, where Fugal labeled BAASS, or us, the team, snipes, that we were going on snipe hunts. And I will address this partially here and then on
Right. Can
on
you
Sunday.
clarify? Because I think that might have gone under the radar for some people. But, and this is really interesting because I go ahead and tell us a little bit about that. That's terminology from the Boy Scouts.
Okay, I'm going to actually start. The Webster definition is a practical joke in which the victim is left in a remote spot holding a bag for fictitious snipe to run in. And so I also went into Wikipedia, which, it's not Webster's, but I find it interesting what they're saying. And I quote, "A snipe hunt is a type of practical joke or fool's errand in existence in North America as early as 1840s, in which an unsuspecting newcomer is duped into trying to catch a non-existent animal called a snipe. Although snipe are actual birds, a snipe hunt is a quest for an imaginary creature whose description varies. The target of the prank is led to an outdoor spot and given instructions for catching the snipe. These often include waiting in the dark and holding an empty bag or making noises to attract the creature. The others involved in the prank then leave the newcomer alone in the woods to discover the joke. As an American rite of passage, snipe hunting is often associated with summer camps and groups such as the Boy Scouts." And it goes on and on and on. It talks about fool's errands, wild goose chases, something of the rite of passage, Boy Scouts, tall tales. And so he is saying in the interview that the people that were on the work in the ranch prior, meaning BAASS,
Under a government contract,
OSAP, that we were duped into snipe hunting by the great Eagle Scout, Robert Bigelow. So my question out of this is, so if we were duped into snipe hunting, and you may not be totally off, it may have just been that. What is the TV series? Has the Snipe Boy Scout Master changed names? And what are they hunting? Snipes? Because that's what it appears to me. I find it fascinating that you get all this drama about, oh my God, radiation. We're sitting inside a microwave oven. Dangerous levels of radiation that are, killing people. And all this drama, a helicopter that was spying on them that turned out to be actually a line helicopter that surveyed the power lines that McWest uncovered. And all these really embarrassing issues that are documented there. So my question, and this is what I would like to ask Mr. Fugal, and we actually did ask it. If it is so dangerous to be there, that, what's that lead scientist again?
Eric Bard.
No, the other guy.
Taylor.
Yeah. He talks about he's got radiation burns on his hands, and Winterton got his scalp blown off, and all this stuff.
I mean, it's
injuries, whatever. But the thing is, if it is that dangerous, then why would you go in and film season 2? Either it is. At this point, if it was that crazy, would radiation stop at the East Gate or the West Gate? What about the neighbors? What about people that are exposed? If this is not a hoax, if this is really true, and there is radiation, and they're praying that to the choir that it is radiation, then how can they, with good conscience, keep Series 2? Why isn't OSHA coming in? Why isn't the Department of Energy coming in?
Which is what Mick West mentioned this when I interviewed him. And so other people were sounding the alarms after watching the show, and some of these questions came about definitely. And so Mick West brought that up beautifully, but it is true. And we do have concerns for the community. And again, I think I was surprised in the Mick West interview and then in my interview that the snipe hunt came up, because to me that's obviously a very demeaning thing. And what is he saying, that Bigelow used this government contract to send you guys out there to battle these imaginary figures, and that you as trained professionals, as military professionals, that you guys are just going to go out there and you did your job and you're trained. And so I think that it is interesting that now we've got a group of people that aren't trained, that don't have a lot of working knowledge of the ranch, and there are some people that are trained, whatever, but how can you guys be snipe hunting and then not, how can the same question, how come we can't ask that about the current crew? You know, I mean.
Exactly. Isn't that show based on snipe hunting? I mean, a lot of these things that come out that people are actually looking at, like Mick West's fantastic work on the helicopter. And oh my God, it was drama. He also demonstrated the EMF, the trimeter, to be reacting to cell phones, and he showed the actual levels of the trimeter, yet it got, 2-3 minutes of show time because it was dramatized and it was wow, look at us. So basically what I would like to get to, either this whole radiation thing and the whole microwave thing is a hoax for ratings, or the ranch management does not care about the safety and security of its employees and the neighbors in Roosevelt, in Fort Duchesne. So which is it? Is it radiation and we just take that as collateral damage? Or is it a hoax for ratings? Because I'll tell you what, if I were exposed to radiation and had radiation burns, would I go back on the place and say, you know what? It's all good. I'm good. Let's just get some more.
Right, absolutely. We've got to go to break. I am Erica Lukes here with Chris Marx. We will be back, and I can guarantee this is going to be a good show.
Listen very carefully.
This is Houston. Say again, please. Houston, we've had a problem.
This is UFO Classified, live every Friday night, 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern, exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. The truth is out there, just waiting to be discovered.
And now, if you will, accompany me on a journey to the future.
For more information on the host of UFO Classified, Erica Lukes, upcoming guests, as well as links to the past shows,
visit her website at ufoclassified.com.
UFO Classified.
UFO Classified.
This is KCOR Las Vegas, home of the Digital Radio Network, broadcasting from a shack just south of Area 51.
Wait, that doesn't exist.
This is the KCOR Digital Radio Network. Now for the news.
The disc landed at a ranch at Corona, New Mexico. The rancher turned it over to the Air Force. Rancher W.W. Brazell was the man who discovered the saucer.
What I thought was a star began coming in my direction at a very rapid rate of speed.
The unidentified object, which some sources thought might be a blimp, moved slowly down the Pacific coast from Santa Monica and disappeared south of Long Beach.
I saw a UFO, and it went down the river, turned right at the United Nations, turned left, and then down the river.
UFO Classified.
UFO Classified.
No more plausible deniability. Fact, fiction, or the truth. You decide. And now, the new voice of the high desert, the hostess of UFO Classified, Erica Lukes.
Welcome back to UFO Classified. I want to thank all of my loyal and wonderful supportive listeners. I am getting more and more support for the radio show every week, and I appreciate the generous contributions to keep the show on the air. This has truly been a labor of love, and it gives me a lot of hope to know that there are people out there who actually use logic and that are capable of understanding when things aren't that are put forward that aren't necessarily what they seem. And I also really, as I've mentioned before, I love doing what Tom Tulane has done, except he has had just the most really amazing interviews. I've got to get Tom back on. He has been all over the world to interview some researchers, and that it would just blow your mind. I want to thank him for allowing me to use that segment of an interview he did with Junior Hicks a few years back. And if you go to Sign Oral History Project, you can also look at the transcript for an oral history interview with Dr. Frank Salisbury and many others. And these are really important. I encourage people who are new to the subject to get in there and read some of these, because it is really critical that you have a background in the history of the subject, so that will allow you to move forward without so many pitfalls that some of us have experienced. But I am grateful to Tom, and I'm hoping he will come back on the show to talk about his wonderful work over the years. I am joined now by Chris Marx, who has been on my show frequently because we have been on a whirlwind of a discovery process about some of the goings-ons at a ranch, the Utah UFO Ranch, as Junior refers to it, where Chris worked for years. And now
6 years.
New documents are coming to light, the OSAP solicitation sheet, that are very plainly suggesting that this program, government funded, was in fact not necessarily looking at UFOs, but was looking at different types of weapons and the effects on human beings. And as I go down this hole and I look, there are many different examples out there that you can find, and I highly suggest you do that. You start doing your research, look into things. Don't do it from a UFO lens, but do it from somebody who is looking at the people, looking at what specific agencies have done over the decades, look at the diversionary tactics they have deployed. Skinwalker Ranch is a very unique place, and I think there's a lot going on. Brandon Fugal was gracious enough to come on my show last week, which I appreciate, and for many years, I have supported the effort of the new team very vocally, and it has just been since I've been on this discovery process with Chris, and more is coming out, and the more I research, talk to his colleagues and different neighbors on the ranch, the more we have some very serious questions. And then you see the TV show where they again are asking, they're mentioning these dangerous levels of radiation. They're showing animals that are mutilated by other dogs, I think, in the area. We never really got the answer to that because the camera was obscured a little bit. But you've got these things that are taking place, and my question really is, if you're presenting this, which Bigelow's team did, his top scientists, and I have this in writing. One of his top scientists specifically told me that the scientists, after a time period, were not allowed back on the ranch. You heard, because you were there every day at Bigelow Aerospace, that the top people at Bigelow, right underneath him, were not allowed to go to the ranch. And correct. I want to ask you a little bit more about that, because I think that's important. Why would that be the case?
When I was at transition, even in between after BAASS was ebbing off, and I grandfathered, was myself, John, Chris Bartel, and Dr. Kelleher, we transitioned from BAASS to aerospace. And of course, there were many conversations to be had with, became good friends with a lot of the top level execs at aerospace. And we went on company hikes. Sometimes Mr. Bigelow would join, sometimes he wouldn't, or other family members. And it often came up that we talked about the ranch. And many of his top execs were, asking, "Hey, so you were there, so we want to go, but Mr. B doesn't let us go. He strictly forbade us to go." And I asked him, "So why?" And the answer that was commonly given was that it was too dangerous. something could follow you home, and the same old cliches. But the bottom line is that he forbade his valuable people to go to the ranch. Can we mention what Kit Green responded to Basterfield?
Yeah, I mean, I think that is important. So Dr. Kit Green, if some of you don't know who he is, he's been involved with the CIA for a long time, and he's also was with Bigelow and has researched with him over the years. And so Keith Basterfield did an excellent blog. Everything he does is excellent, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And he actually mentioned to Dr. Kit Green, asked him some questions about your allegations, yours and Chris Bartell, another colleague of yours who worked with you on the ranch. And he mentioned the possibility that, you were saying we feel like guinea pigs and there were potentially non-lethal weapons involved. And, what did Dr. Green, how did he respond?
I'm paraphrasing, but he said that he essentially had nothing to add, that the theories that we held was correct, and that he wouldn't feel that there was anything that he could contribute further. And I thought that was very interesting in itself. I also would like to mention that for the longest time, and there's so much that in the last year we discovered where, remember we looked at pictures, because I got over hundreds of pictures I took with my camera, anything from just landscape to investigations and tracks and whatnot. And you pointed out that earth-moving equipment, heavy earth-moving equipment, that caterpillar. And I have looked at this thing 1,000 times. I never really put it together until you kind of asked, what is that thing doing there? And it's like, you know what? I really don't know. It's like $150,000 piece of equipment that is used for heavy earth moving, but I've never seen it in use other than fixing the road maybe a handful of times in the 6 years I was there. And
and that brings up, something that I did not get to ask about last week. We've heard for decades about don't dig on the property, and you've got different schools of thought that are out there, and of course some believe that it would disturb an Indian burial ground, which that in a certain part of that area could potentially be the case.
There is. We know there is, but it's up on the eastern side of the mesa. We know it. BAASS knew it, and the tribal elders know it. It's not a myth. It's not a conspiracy theory. There is an Indian burial ground on the property, the vicinity of the ranch, but it's up in the mesa.
So we've got that, and then we've got all sorts of other theories that have kind of flown out there. But I want to, because there were times when there were surveyors that tried to come on the property, and I think this is another important thing too for people to understand. The Uintah Basin, specifically this area, is very rich. It is in oil deposits. There are a lot of oil deposits that are, I believe that there's one under the ranch, and I'm not sure. I don't believe that Bigelow ever retained the rights to that.
No, he didn't.
But then you've also got a lot of drills that are popping up around the ranch. So there's very vested interest in kind of taking hold of the resources. And I know that community and state leaders have been looking at different things like this over the years. In fact, there is, and this is very interesting, I just want to throw this out there because this should be food for thought for people, but there is a project in the work. It's a proposed $1.5 billion railway, which could reportedly quadruple oil production in the basin's Uintah and Duchesne counties. And some are saying that this is going to create a lot of transportation issues, environmental disasters. It has been criticized by Utah physicians for healthy living, but there is a lot of money involved and a lot of people politically and in the business world that want to see this go through because it will make a lot of money for people. And so there is an interest for those specific things on and around the ranch. It is my belief. But then you also have other things. And so continue on your thought process.
I think the ranch has always been, in one way, shape, or another, a moneymaker. It made RTB money. It's making the new steward, and I use his own words here, money. It's always been a profitable business. And I love looking back when I was still a believer and first got into this whole thing. The theory was that we could never document anything was because these events that popped up were always changing and were unpredictable, so we could never be ready to actually document them. So over the last few years, I looked at that theory and I looked at the reports, and we've got not only my reports, we have reports of a lot of other BAASS members. We got like close to 800 pages of reports. So we started looking through, and there is one thing that crystallizes. Whatever happens at Homestead 2 as far as compasses spinning, as far as electromagnetic fields, as far as vertigo, as far as disembodied voices, only happens at Homestead 2. The opening of doors, the walkthrough of the trailer only happens at Homestead 1, at the trailer. The wolves only happened, there were 3 of them, and they weren't huge. They were normal-sized animals. I know this because I hunt, and I've come across wolves in the wild. They were only in the southern woodline. They would never show up in the mesa. They would never show up at trailer. They would never show up at Homestead 2. So there were about 5 specific events that repeated themselves over and over at specific geographic locations.
Well, what I want to mention here too, which I think it gets away from people, is the fact that they were looking for you to specifically record and document different interactions that you were having. And I think it has been interesting over Bigelow's career how he's kind of had a vested interest to see how people react to specific situations. And it's so, to me, it would support something perhaps.
I'll give you a great example for that. And this is not just me. We all talked. I mean, the BAASS team, the ones that were on the ranch, we, of course, at turnovers, at shift changes, we would talk. And in the first couple of years, when we got back to Vegas, we would debrief, sometimes for 45 minutes, sometimes for half an hour, sometimes for an hour and a half, with RTB and Dr. Kelleher. And when we had events happening, for example, at Homestead 2, the question was never asked as far as what are surrounding circumstances. That was never a question. The questions were, how exactly did you feel as far as, did you have vertigo? Did you feel nausea? If you felt nausea, was it more a stomach nausea? Was it kind of coming from a brain-directed nausea? Did you feel? I mean, it was very specific medical questions. The surrounding of it didn't really play a role. It was really what each of us individually felt as a physiological effect was more important than anything that could have been observed surrounding the event.
Right, and that would explain why you didn't necessarily have top-of-the-line equipment. You had to bring your own there. So I think that I think some people will try to say that, they didn't. The ranch, it wasn't the purpose of the study. And now we're seeing that the narrative has changed. It's gone from Skinwalker Ranch is the hub of all things, and now certain people are trying to backtrack a little bit because I think they understand some of the things that are taking place with regard to questions surrounding what took place and who's potentially been exposed to things, whether UAP or whether it is some sort of test is remains to be seen. But I think evidence is definitely pointing in a direction.
Well, going on to that, in your interview last week with Brandon Fugal, his own words were that when he took over the ranch, it was a rundown, falling down operation. It was just totally in decay. It was a crap hole of sorts. At the same time, he said when he went to Vegas, it was beautiful. He had the most impressive visit at the aerospace complex. So here's the contradiction in this. If this would have been a scientific research, an actual scientific research program, would he have found the ranch in the condition that he had found it in? And on previous shows, I went in depth on the or the lack thereof. The fact that there was no money spent. When our septic went down, we waited 2 weeks, and it was totally acceptable to use the bushes because we couldn't use the toilet. That we had $70 a week food allowances and so forth. So on one hand, he says that, it was all this great research, and then
but he was saying that about Bigelow Aerospace.
Then he says there was nothing handed down. We know other. So a lot of contradictions that have been taking place within this whole conversation.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting. I don't know. Like I said, I have learned so much that it just amazes me. And I have so many questions. This has shaken me to its core, and I am, I want the truth to be told. And so I hope it is. But we'll see.
So yeah, it was definitely an interesting interview. And as I said, there will be, I will follow up. And I really want to get into the whole snipe hunting, because he's mentioned this seems to be part of the average.
So why would he mention this and then tie in the group think? I mean, what do you think that's about?
Oh yeah, that was another thing he mentioned. He said that we all were victim to groupthink, and it's interesting. So what does that mean? Does that mean we all were...
So a psychological experiment?
Right. What does that mean? I mean, I can tell you this. When I came on board, why would I was primed by spending time in the library. I was shown all the materials prior to ever going there. So I find the groupthink that you mentioned, that's the beautiful thing about you letting him talk. He said a lot of things that I've been and you've been looking at, and other people have been looking at, and there is going to be a lot more coming out of this, and there's definite questions that need to be asked, and they don't apply to the standardized answers.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I mean, I think there are lots of things that could be going on, and I think it's a layered type of thing, the psychological experiments with other things, and then, let's say that this is a UFO hotspot, and you are exposed to UAPs, which now, of course, we've got To the Stars Academy, Luis Elizondo, and different people saying that they are a threat. We have multiple members of the NIDS team coming out and saying that it was a threat. People were terrified, people were injured, yada, yada. So any way you look at it, whether it's UAP or whatever, you guys were thrown into a place where people are having, by their own words, pretty significant health experiences. And I know, as I've said before on my show, and I want to stress this a lot, to watch you and Chris go through this kind of discovery process and not know things about your health and know that you went in there to do the best job that you could do. And I think that that's pretty, it's pretty alarming. And I think that I want to just stress, because, of course we get blowback from the people that are, how could you do this? How could you say these things? And blah, 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 blah. And it's like, I have the right. I've been researching this. I've been looking into this. I've been documenting things for years. I have probably the best collection of documents, thanks to you and a couple other people who have been very generous. I know what I'm talking about. I have the right to question. I have the right to question when people are, like you, looking for answers when a TV show is being put forward where there are dangerous levels of radiation. We all have not only the right to question this, but we have an obligation as citizens, as caring human beings, to want to know why people are being hurt or put in situations where they could be.
Just from a common sense perspective. So the ranch changes ownership from one wealthy guy to another wealthy guy. And the proposed buyer flies down to Vegas and meets with the original owner, or the owner that he's buying it from. Do you not think that they didn't address the issue of the ranch? They would have certainly talked about the ranch.
Absolutely. We're going to get ready to go to break. I'm Erica Lukes here on KCOR. Thanks again, Chris. I know that this has been an interesting ride for all of us, like I said, and I appreciate the love and support from my listening audience. You are the best. We will be back after this break.
Stand by.
This is UFO Classified with Erica Lukes.
Erica Lukes.
The phone lines are open now at 702-425-9230. That's 702-425-9230. Worldwide callers use Skype name KCOR Radio. More UFO Classified.
UFO Classified.
With Erica Lukes on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. After this.
Vegas, baby!
Vegas' #1 source for talk and new music.
How cool is that?
1 million miles till midnight. A story of timelines, artificial worlds, simulated races, and the galactic imprint, and the destiny of a blue world called Earth. 1 million miles till midnight, written by Solaris Blue Raven, is a journey through the mind's eye which allows the reader to surf a wave of technological and multidimensional intellect, revealing a bridge between conscious design and the truth. A multidimensional bleed-through awakens the world of artificial intelligence to set sail into the frontiers of a vast multiverse, morphing planets and terraforming ascended worlds beyond the linear programs of a fated race. 1 million miles till midnight will awaken, inspire, prepare and enlighten one to the many multidimensional states of consciousness and worlds we reside in. With every cell and atom, we are this truth and multiverse. 1 million miles till midnight. Written by Solaris Blue Raven. Available now at Amazon.com. Don't wait. Get your copy today.
There is a world outside that which we live in, a realm where fact and fiction collide. The Paradigm Matrix.
The Paradigm Matrix.
Hosted by Willie Miranda, every Friday night at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern.
The Matrix is everywhere. It is all around us, even now in this very room.
The 1-hour show that will surely leave you hanging on the edge of the rabbit hole.
The Paradigm Matrix
explores a universe of topics from UFOs, cryptozoology, conspiracies, as well as all things paranormal.
Enter a world of the twisted and deformed.
Friday night, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. The Paradigm Matrix. Exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network, where fact and fiction collide.
Alien Deceptions, a suspenseful sci-fi romance thriller by Tina Marie, featuring the tantalizing Erica Jones and the mysterious Russell Hamilton. An out-of-this-world book of fiction based on years of document facts and files the government does not want you to know about, at least not yet. Alien Deceptions by Tina Marie. Available now at Amazon.com or get a signed copy at TinaMarieEntertainment.com. Get your copy now.
1, 2, 3, 4!
You are listening
to the KCOR Digital Radio Network.
I love the way it sounds.
Love the music. Oh, I listen to it.
The future of radio is here and now.
You're listening to UFO Classified with Erica Lukes, where the truth isn't hidden beneath the black lines of a Sharpie.
That's the craziest thing I've ever heard.
To be on with Erica, call 702-425-9230. That's 702-425-9230. Worldwide callers use Skype name KCOR Radio.
Radio contact.
Share your thoughts on the show on Twitter by using hashtag KCOR. Or head over to the live chats at KCORradio.com.
The audience goes nuts.
And now, your host of UFO Classified.
Are you ready?
Erica Lukes.
Erica Lukes.
Welcome back to UFO Classified. I want to just again thank Tom Tulane for not only for letting me use a portion of that wonderful interview with Junior Hicks, but for also working very diligently over the years to get researchers' testimony, to preserve their history. I know that Jan Aldrich has been on my show many times, and they both do this together, and it is so important because for somebody like myself, I can look back at Junior's interview 5 years from now and get little bits of nuggets that builds upon what I'm researching now. And so it is so important. And also it is really a beautiful thing to be able to go in when somebody has worked their whole life doing this and has sacrificed a lot. It is wonderful to give them acknowledgement and let them know that, hey, you have done something and we appreciate that, and that will live on. I think that is really a powerful thing. And so thank you, Tom. And like I said, I want to get you back on the show because I know that you have so much information to share with us about the times you've worked with different people. So Sign Oral History Project, check it out. I will post links on my website as well so you can learn the history. You can learn the importance of the subject. So many of you who come into this, just like myself, are new and you don't understand the nuances, the history, the distractions. It is a really, this subject is full of a lot of pitfalls. And so if you can learn from people who have been there and done that, it is a really important thing to move things forward. And like I try to stress in every show, don't necessarily look at the brightest, newest, shiniest object and follow with your tails wagging with the, again, To the Stars Academy. Show us what you've got. Is this an entertainment company? What is the goal with this? I find all of this fascinating. And when I wanted to say when To the Stars Academy, when that December, the New York Times article, December of 2017 came out, I was very, very hopeful and supportive at that point. And over the past couple of years, my attitudes and thoughts have maybe changed on that a little bit, especially knowing the background of some of the people involved. But anyway, there's my little moment there for you. I want to say thank you to Mario, who is a show supporter and who does a great job helping me get the information out on YouTube. And I want to thank the people that get in there and ask questions. And I want to just acknowledge the trolls. You know you're living when, you know, you're pushing the boundaries when you've got some little friends out there making comments. And so bring it on. I am here with Chris Marx, who spent 9 years working for Bigelow Aerospace. He spent 6 years living on Skinwalker Ranch, had some unusual experiences there that now we're learning more. He questions what it was. And I think that, you know, Chris, and I wanted to say this, I mean, you have no doubt, well, I mean, what are your thoughts on the paranormal and things? Because for me, I want to say that I have had experiences. That's why I'm here. I'm trying to find answers. I think it is a fascinating subject. But in the case of a place like the ranch, when that is being used to perhaps hide other things, it kind of shakes your, at least for me, it's kind of shaken me a little bit in that regard. And so what are your thoughts on that?
I second that. I've had throughout my lifetime experiences that I could not explain.
And that's one of the reasons, and that's one thing that they asked you when they were hiring you.
Correct. I think that was the $10,000 question that got me into this whole company. But I've had experiences that were absolutely not set up, that a lot of them happened during my civilian law enforcement days, that were totally unpredicted and just out of the blue. And so I'm not saying that there is no such thing. I believe there are absolutely paranormal events. I absolutely believe, and I know that there is something else out there, and it's something else that is a beautiful thing, but
it's been
the ranch. It is not.
And
the more I've learned, the more we've learned, the more we've looked at the documentation, the evidence, that the more people researched and we researched, all of a sudden there emerged a picture, a puzzle over the last year, where I am willing to say that whatever has happened on the ranch, I would put a paycheck in that it was manufactured, it was man-made, it was not paranormal. And if you take accounts of people that have lived around the area, and you've had them on your show, that said there was absolutely nothing happening prior to 1995, 96, in that time frame, 97. I interviewed myself, a ditch rider who grew up on the ranch, in Homestead too, as a matter of fact, or was very close with the family. Visited there, spent many summers with them. And he also, when I interviewed him, said, you know, it was just a normal ranch. There was a school bus route that went through what we call the Hickens Ranch Road, that crosses Eastgate to Westgate, was a school bus route. There was nothing out of the ordinary until RTB acquired the ranch, or when the Shermans got there. And there are different theories of what took place when the Shermans got there. But prior to the Shermans, there was nothing.
But I mean, and you know, I know that on the ranch, I mean, it's like people are saying, and I spoke with somebody related to Garth Myers, and there was nothing. Even though I guess that was people were trying to say that Garth Myers was a liar. I don't believe he was. I believe he really didn't have a lot to say about it. But anyway, that's I'm sure that will be contested hotly.
Didn't he hold a church office?
He was. He actually was in my bishopric. I grew up in the LDS Church, and I knew him personally, and he was a man of honor and integrity. I will tell you that he was one of my favorite people growing up. And it was very interesting that just a few months back, I made the connection and I just thought, okay, the universe is a little too small, but I'm kind of digging it because it works for me that I have these community connections as well. But I want to go back to, you had mentioned the other night in our conversations that there were times when surveyors wanted to come on the property. Talk a little bit about that, because I think that's interesting.
So when this whole oil boom started around the ranch, there were oil platforms coming out of nowhere. I mean, we're talking everywhere, especially to the south. And then we had surveyors that came in and surveyed the mesa, surveyed all the way down towards the ranch road, and put up their surveyor flags. Of course, RTB wasn't going to have that. I believe some of those flags were moved under cover of night. But anyways.
And there was also a memo in the trailer.
Yeah.
Will you talk a little bit about that? Because I think that's rather interesting as well.
It was about electric. I don't remember the company name.
Yeah.
They were going to do a survey, and they were strictly forbidden to enter the property. Then came up the whole thing about who owns mineral rights to the ranch, and it wasn't RTB. So people I talked to, just being out and about, were saying that they're just going to build a straw or a straw system to suck whatever they wanted to suck off oil underneath the ranch. So I don't know what happened. I'm not a geologist, but I can tell you that surveyors came on, that they surveyed the ranch, or parts of the ranch in the mesa, for whatever intended purposes. Like I said, I don't have all that info. I just know that they were there and they left visible evidence as far as a ton of flags and marking whatever they were marking.
Oh, interesting. I wonder if some of the readings they got on the TV show might have anything to do with that. But we don't know. But it is. All of this is so interesting, and it has evolved at a really quick pace. And I will say that it's caught both of us a little off guard, because we didn't know a year ago when we first met that we were going to uncover so many things. And I really believe that the people involved for decades didn't expect that, and they didn't understand kind of our veracity and commitment to finding the truth. And that's what we want. We've seen decades of people taking the UFO narrative and using it for their own gains, and it's been it's sad that, again, how many decades later that we're still kind of left with these questions. We're not getting answers, and now there is this kind of a fear-mongering tactic taking place in an attempt to get funding for contractors.
I think a lot of people curse the day that you picked up the phone and called me, but I was still living in Vegas, to do a pre-interview for the first interview, which I was never in this community or involved in ufology or any of that. None. Too busy playing guitar. But I think people regret that. So with that being said, you know what I find interesting?
I think so.
So what I find interesting, and again, I will address this not on this show, but something I'm going to put out, because it's just something that is it just, I'm not going to let that sit. This whole snipe thing. So all of us that were on the ranch were vets. We all, Air Force, Army, most of us had been seen combat in Iraq or Afghanistan. So we were out there, and so we're labeled snipes. And I do not appreciate that when you take into consideration that at the same token, wasn't it Eric Davis that even on Corbell's show was very emotional about showing his experience with a wormhole that he saw and all that other stuff? And so somehow that is cool, so Eric Davis and his wormhole experience is something that is real. But all of us that came after in BAASS, we are just duped into group thinking. We're snipes. And I find this mighty arrogant, because if there ever was an example for snipes, I think the History Channel series is the snipe kingdom of them all. But neither here nor there. I will address that in a different show. I just find it so disrespectful because we were out there. We were actually sleeping out in the mesa without tents to be able to disconnect our fear factor and try to get in touch with what we believed at the time to be out there subconsciously.
Because you were primed.
Because we were
all given the book, Hunt for the Skinwalker. You, like you said, you were given access to Bigelow's library, and you translated a German document, which is interesting. And I want to just throw this in here really quickly because, again, this is a whole another road to go down. But what was the document that you translated for Bigelow in his library?
My first job at BAASS was because I'm a native German speaker. I was handed a set of orders, and it was about a couple of inches thick, and they appeared to be original to me, written in the old German language, old style, old grammar. 1942, that depicted a Nazi expedition to find the sunken city of Agatha. And it was so detailed. It took me about a week to translate it. It had everything from the bills of lading, the crews, the U-boat numbers, the commanders, water depth, ice depth, currents, water temps. I mean, it was one of the most perfect up orders I've ever seen in a military career.
So who asked you to do that specifically?
It was one of the BAASS scientists that handed it to me. I don't know. Back then, I was blue-eyed naive. I just translated the best I could to keep the original tone of the orders. But I've never seen a more clear up order than this one. It was absolutely amazing, stunning. And I wondered then, it's like, so what exactly is this company about? Are we dabbling in those type of things? Are we doing the ranch? Are we doing a combination of both? And then, of course, later on, I learned about the Brazilian trip. And so it was just a lot of muddy waters. And then when we learned the background of the ranch administrators, we learned OSAP, we learned the Tasky, the program director for the DIA that was on the ranch. Clearly, I was told that, as a matter of fact, a fax documents, not only one copy went to Bigelow, the other went to what we called at that time the sponsor. We believed it to be the NSA at the time because Bob King, who was the director of security at BAASS, was former or retired NSA. And so the more we learned, the more it became muddy. And I guess in the last year, with the help of a lot of outstanding researchers like Keith Basterfield, Kurt Collins, and just to name a few, things became a lot more unmuddied. And so much kudos to those guys that put in countless hours. And there's others that send us, as you know, not so much me, documentation that is just stunning. And
it's been interesting, and I know that there are people, of course, when you're in a situation, such a hot situation like this, there are going to be people that send you things and people that you have to understand their backgrounds might not necessarily be, you could be fed information. That's just the way I think things kind of go, and could be manipulated and different things. But it has been very cool to see this group of people and the interest from all over the world, and people that are willing to take time to do research, and then we come together and we share these things. And there's some powerful things, because there are a handful of people who have been doing research for a long, long time and digging into holes that most people won't go because they want to just stay with the fluff, because it's a lot more enjoyable and yeah. So I am very grateful to those people who have been working with me, communicating with me, and there is a whole team of us. And I wanted to stress again the international support that we have gotten, because I think people, especially outside the United States, are not so charmed by the stuff that's going on in the U.S. and the games that are being played. And so when you look to the European community, you get people that I think have a little bit more of a foothold with reality, unless you know people, Jan Aldrich and Barry Greenwood and some people like that I happen to hold in very high regard and consider mentors for me, Gordon Lohr and things. And so, which I want to just give a shout out to Gordon. We're working on a book together that is almost done. I love him, and he's been the great influence on me. So we will keep you posted and get him on the show and things. But it's been a very cool thing. And so, as sometimes when I feel like I'm Don Quixote and I'm going up against this big machine, it has been, and there are people coming at me and you and things, but it has also been really a great source of strength to know that there is a huge underground community that understand that they are being manipulated, they're being lied to, that we deserve information, and disclosure is not rolling out at the hands of anybody in the United States unless they're kind of the underground researchers who I try to get on the floor. So, and I want to answer Adrian's question. You did not keep a translation of those orders.
No, I didn't. And I don't know what came of it. I don't know if they actually ever found that place. What was interesting, Erica talking about international responses to this, we got a lot of responses out of Germany, as a matter of fact. I did a couple of shows in my native language. Shout out to Robert Fleischer and Tariq Al-Ubaidi, and I probably butchered that. Both really awesome, with an awesome audience. That it was interesting to see the questions that they were asking were of an entirely different scope and a lot more scientifically based than some of the responses we're getting here, where it's simply either you believe or you don't believe.
And that's the thing. It's like I even interacting on the Skinwalker Ranch pages or different pages on Facebook, which I'm about ready to dump anyway, but you just see these people, whether they're paid trolls or whether they're delusional. I'm not quite sure what's happening there, but it's like they're not going to go down without a fight. I mean, it's you can sit there and present evidence that is very plain and clear, and yet they are so bound to their ways of thinking that it's, they just you can't disturb that. And I know people's belief systems. We could do a whole show about that, but I think that it's and I get it. And like I said in the beginning of the show, it's like I've been there, I've done that, I've made mistakes. I believed in things, I believed in people. I've seen a lot of things, and this will be a work in progress for me. I will make mistakes, and I will admit to my mistakes. And that is the learning process that you go through, and hopefully if you're on the right path, you can admit that. So I just think that's really an important thing.
I think what we are seeing, and that's really amazing, is a polarization. Either you're on this and in this team, or you're on that team. What about the whole idea that there is no team. The only interest that should be highlighted and be put forward is to find facts and have opinions based on the factual evidence that is presented. This is not a polarization of, oh, I love this guy or I love that guy. But sadly, what we're seeing, at least here in the US, is it is as polarized as politics, as everything else. Wear a mask, don't wear a mask. Believe in this, don't believe in that. It is actually sad that very few people take the time out, research something on their own, even if it's just verifying what you and I are saying or what other people are saying. But they're very, very first to trot to depend their opinions, no matter what they are.
Right. And I think, too, I mean, you see a lot of people that get on social media and perhaps they're maybe lonely or, there are lots of things going on. And so they get into these Facebook groups and they don't realize there's a lot more to social media than meets the eye, and they can be manipulated. And then I am guilty of this too. I can get riled up sometimes as well, but it's, I think it is, at the end of the day, if people want disclosure, then it is a disservice for all of us who are truth seekers, to not want the truth. I'm Erica Lukes, and I'm here with Chris Marx. Have a wonderful, safe weekend. Stick around for a great night on KCOR.
Listen very carefully.
This is Houston. Say again, please. Houston, we've had a problem.
This is UFO Classified, live every Friday night, 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern, exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. The truth is out there, just waiting to be discovered.
And now, if you will, accompany me on a journey to the future.
For more information on the host of UFO Classified, Erica Lukes, upcoming guests, as well as links to the past shows,
visit her website at ufoclassified.com.
UFO Classified.
UFO Classified.
This is KCOR Las Vegas, home of the Digital Radio Network, broadcasting from a